I wonder. Well, I'm a bit stuck. I don't know what to make today's video about. It's raining outside, but consequently it's not very pleasant to be out. I don't particularly want to go into the mud in the woods or anything and risk the chance of falling over and just generally ending up damaging equipment. So I think today's a day for sitting behind a computer. So what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to go over one or two of the images that I've taken recently in the woodlands and talk you through the edits I've made on it and why I made them, and show you the images. As you're aware, I upgraded my PC and my laptop, which is still here obviously, but I've upgraded them recently to Mac Minis, or at least one Mac Mini, which is performing very well and I'm thoroughly enjoying using it. So I think we'll go across the computer and we'll see which image. And I think I've got an image in mind. There's an old tractor I took a picture of up in the woods the other week in the frost. I think I'll dig that picture out and we'll see what we can make from it. Anyway, join me in a second over at the computer. Well, this is the image I'm interested in getting from this, which is a combination of this image and this image. I've merged them together to produce this image. And what I'm going to do is get from this image to the one that you'll now see, and I'll talk you through the process that I go through to get to that point. As I've already mentioned, I actually have stitched those two images here at the bottom, number 35, 36 and 37 together, and produced this rather ungainly panorama, which is number image 38, which is the one that's on the screen at the moment. And what I'm going to do is go through the processing that I'm going to perform on this. So first of all, I'm looking at the image and I'm deciding what are the main components of this image. And the main components are the old tractor here, which is just parked up in the bracken, and rather an old piece of carpet over the bonnet to keep the weather off it a little bit. But other than that, it's a nice little old tractor, probably very valuable, I don't know. So that's the main focus of the image, and as you can see, it's roughly on the intersection of the thirds of the image here, the tractor's located. So if I put this grid on, you can see the 2/3 lines, and you can see also I've already cropped it in part to just the panoramic stitching process had just distorted it slightly, and I didn't need those edges, so I cropped them off. So I've almost got a square image here, but it doesn't suit what I want from the image. And the main actors in this image are the tractor itself, and also this little coppice of trees here with this little bush that's still got leaves on it. Those are the main two aspects of the image, and again, that's pretty close to being on the thirds, and the thirds going this way. But there are a couple of annoyances in the image which I'm not happy about. First is this dead tree here, which looks really quite ugly, and there's some tiny bits of old metalwork here which are just distracting. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually clone those out, and to do that I'll just paint roughly over this area, and because it's quite a complex image, no one's going to know wherever the source is for that is right or not, so we'll accept that as the first fix. And as you can see, you can't tell, it's a chaotic mismatch of bits of bramble and bits of old fern and bits of old twig and all sorts, so no one can see that that's actually being done. I'll probably have more trouble with this tree stump here, but we'll give it a go and see what it comes up with out of the box, as it were. So let's just paint that down to there and see what it actually puts in its place. And that's not too bad, but I think what I'll do is I'll source back this way and try and line it up so there's a tree roughly in the same place. It's proving tricky. Okay, I'll just accept that for the moment. Let's turn the tool off. Okay, there's a slight problem here, but I can probably fix that in a minute. I've got rid of the old metal framework here, which is gone, and I've pretty much made that tree that was there not so obvious. Now, I have an issue here in that this part of the image, which is the top of these small silver birch trees, is actually against the sky, as obviously all of this is, but I don't really want this square crop. I don't think it works on this image properly, so what I'm going to have to do is lose the top of those trees quite a bit. And in doing that, what I'm doing is thirds line here is now forming across this sort of artificial horizon or semi-horizon between the ferns and the trees in the background. And that to me is quite a nice crop. I think I'll take a little bit off this side here, and I'll probably pull it in this side here a bit as well, just to tighten it up, to lose a bit more of the rubbish in the frame. So I'll accept that. Now I've taken the tops of the trees off, pretty much all of the trees, and I think that works better. To my eye, that works better. So what I'm going to do now is actually work on the settings. I've already put it in auto mode, and we'll do that again because I've cropped it since I did it originally. And you can see it's a nice frosty day and everything's dusted in a layer of frost. And I want to pull the eye more into the center of the picture. So what I'm going to do is produce a oval or circle vignette. And what I'm going to do that is mark the tractor out and center that particular oval on the tractor. And I'll probably need to invert it because the effect I want is to actually make the rest of the picture less obvious. So I'm going to turn the texture down a little bit and the clarity down. Sorry, didn't need to invert it that way. I need to invert that way. Invert. Yes, I want to bring out the tractor a bit more colour and contrast in the tractor. So that's done that quite nicely. And I want to do something pretty similar just here to actually bring the eye to this area of the picture slightly as well. So let's just turn all the effects off and I'll invert that and we'll just slightly dehaze that just to make it a little bit more obvious. And I might just turn a bit of saturation and let's just increase the texture a bit, not too much. So I've now got the eye pulled towards this area of the frame and pulled towards this area of the frame, and I think that crop I performed earlier probably is a little bit too tight on this. So what I'm going to do is just open up this side a bit, which means that this area is now a bit more prominent, and I think I can afford to just take a bit more height in that. So I'm going to settle on that as the crop. So we've got the tractor much more obvious now, and I want to lose the colour a little bit more to make the tractor more obvious. So I'm going to pick up the brush here and I'm going to just reset all the effects. I'm going to turn the contrast down, turn the saturation down and turn the clarity down and paint a little bit around the tractor here. And we'll wait for it to do that, and it's very subtle, the effect. It's not really very noticeable. What it's doing, I'm hoping, and I'm going to create a second brush effect here, and I'm going to lose more of the background. I want the background to be hazier, so let me set the effects back to nothing, and I'll turn the contrast down, I'll turn dehaze down a long way, and I'll turn clarity down, and what I'm going to do is paint most of this area here and a little bit of those trees. Now, as you can see, the effect there's quite noticeable, so I'm going to pull back those effects slightly, and we've now got quite a ghostly sort of distant set of trees, and in doing that I've still got this problem area here which I need to fix, which is where I cloned out earlier. So let's see if we can't make a better job of cloning that. What I'll do is I'll choose the clone location to be quite close, the source to be close to where I'm cloning out, and it's thinking about it. Let's see if that works or not. I'm hoping it will. And we wait, and we wait. I've given it something complicated to think of doing. It's still thinking. And when that's completed, what I want to do, if it lines up well enough, is I want to put a very, very subtle vignette on this. So what's it done? I might be tempted to leave that. I don't think many people would notice that. So let's come down to the effects at the bottom here. Yes, it's completed that clone. Not completely happy with that. I might go back to what it was before. Let's put quite a healthy vignette on this. What I do is I tend to put the vignette amount on way too much. Set the blend or the feathering to much narrower, and then pull this back here. And that's about as much as I think we need to do for that. But I do need to fix that clone. I'm not happy with how that's cloned that. So I might actually be tempted to cancel that completely. If it'll let me, it's thinking. And leave it with the ugly tree sticking up. Or I could always go into Photoshop and actually do a better job, because Lightroom's cloning tool is not ideal. So I'm actually going to spin this image over into Photoshop and try and get that looking a bit nicer, because I think that area of the image is a bit of a mess and it needs sorting out. So bear with me while we go across to Photoshop. And this is Photoshop 2021 beta, which is running on this little iMac that I'm running on. So let's see if it'll let me move that across. Edit in Photoshop beta, that's the one. So let me pick the clone tool. Let me just center this in here so that it's a bit easier to see what I'm doing. So we've got the clone tool here, and we'll set the tool to be a reasonable size, because I'm probably going to pick up quite a large area with this. So that's the sort of size of clone tool we want. So we want to choose a source for that. So what I'm going to do is choose just the left, or the right in this case, and just swipe down there very slowly and see. Yep, that's worked reasonably well. So I'm now just going to pull some of, I don't think we need 100% opacity here, so I'll turn that opacity down, and I'm just going to pull some of the information from the left of where the clone tool's been working onto this area to make some of these changes a little less obvious. And that, I think, will do. I think that has hidden that well enough that that works for me. So let me export that back into Lightroom, which it's doing now, hopefully. Yep. And once back in Lightroom, any moment now, I should see image appear, number 38, which it is. And that one has got my changes edits on it, which is fine. So I'm reasonably happy with that image now. I think I'll turn the vibrance up a little bit just to pull a bit more color into the tractor, and I'll probably just lift the shadows very slightly, drop the highlights a bit, and it's overall quite a cool image because we've got this large spike of blue here. So I'm tempted to warm it up a little bit, not that much, because I want the frost on the all of the heather and the gorse and everything to be obvious. So there we go. I think that's pretty much the image that I'm going to I'm happy with that. I think that works. I think that's a nice little scene. We've got this old tractor that's slowly giving up to nature with all of this undergrowth growing through it. We've got this nice little spinny or coppice here in the centre with leaves still on it. I think that's quite a pleasing image. So what I'm going to do now is export that, and then we'll put it up and let you guys have a look at it. So let's see, export, where to? Desktop's good enough, don't put in a subfolder, and we'll have it as a JPEG, maximum quality, and no sharpening, no watermarking, export, and that's how I made this image. I hope you found that interesting and an insight into sort of my reasoning and logic into producing this picture. If I'd have rethought this whole area here, I would have probably have preferred the tractor to actually be the other way around, but I couldn't. I moved around it quite a bit and I couldn't frame it any better than this, with a lot of pieces of wood sticking up which were getting into the way of the image. So that's that image made. You enjoyed watching and listening to this, and we'll see you on the next video.